Welcome back to the complete online dressage course by How to Dressage. Now in this module we're focusing on the scales of training, but in this presentation we're going to take a deeper look at the hidden scale of relaxation. So in this video we're going to first look at the negative effects of tension, and we're going to look at what does relaxation mean within dressage. We're also going to give you 6 ways to promote relaxation, and we're going to look at the difference between a hot horse and a tense horse. So let's start by recapping the scales of training pyramid. So your first scale is rhythm, your second scale is suppleness, contact is at scale 3, impulsion scale 4, straightness scale 5, and at scale 6 we have collection. Now as you can see, rhythm is the first official training scale. But before you can even achieve that, your horse must be relaxed and calm. Hence why we're doing a presentation on relaxation and why we've called it the hidden scale, scale 0. Now if your horse is anxious or nervous, it's unlikely that you will get a correct and consistent rhythm. And this is because the tension in the horse's body will prevent him from moving in a balanced and rhythmic way. You will also not be able to achieve suppleness, which is the second scale. And this is because the horse can't be supple in his body if he is tense and tight, because the two are polar opposites. Now, even when you're working on more advanced movements later on in your dressage career, and you're working higher up the training scale looking at straightness and collection, the foundation of relaxation must still be in place, because without it, the rest of the pyramid crumbles. Hence why we're focusing on it right at the beginning of this course and right at the beginning of the module on the dressage scales of training. So now let's take a look at what relaxation actually means within dressage, because some people do get a little bit confused with the term. So when you are riding your horse, if the horse is relaxed, then all the horse's muscles that are not required for the exercise or the work that is being carried out should be relaxed. But the horse should still be ready to use his muscles for the next movement or exercise. So the horse should still be alert, he should still be attentive and reactive to your aids, and he should still be in front of the leg. Now the best way to explain this concept is to picture a ballet dancer. Now when you're watching them perform, there is no tension in the movement, there is no worry, and there is no stiffness. They are relaxed in the movement, but they are still working. They are not relaxed as though they are slumped on the sofa watching TV. That's a completely different type of relaxation. So yes, when we are working our horses, there still needs to be some tension in the muscles that are working, but only the muscles that are required for the movement should be under stress. And the rest of the horse's body and the rest of the horse's muscles should be relaxed. In other words, don't get confused with the term relaxation. Relaxation does not mean that your horse is half asleep. As mentioned, he still should be alert and reactive. And this same principle applies to mental relaxation. He should still be attentive and focused. But what we don't want is we don't want the horse to be worried or anxious. Now the opposite of relaxation is tension. So let's take a look at the negative effects of tension and what happens when your horse isn't relaxed. So first up, we have that the rhythm will become inconsistent or irregular. So as we mentioned in the beginning, it will be very hard for you to achieve the first scale of training because the horse's body will be unable to move in a regular rhythm. Now next up we have that the horse will become tight through his top line, And because of this, the horse will be unable to swing through his back and work through his back into a steady contact. So the contact will become unsteady. This may also lead to the horse coming against the rider's hand or ducking behind the contact. Now again, back to rhythm. If the horse is tense, the tempo may become too quick or inconsistent. And if the horse is stiff through his body, he will stiffen against the rider's aid to bend, making it very difficult to ride through circles, turns and corners, and to position the horse correctly for lateral movements. It also may mean that the horse becomes crooked and the transitions become unbalanced and rough. Ultimately, the harmony between the horse and rider will be lost. So as you can see, this is not a pretty picture. As soon as tension comes into the equation, you kind of lose all fluidity and control over the horse because his body just tenses up. Now, because of those damaging effects, it's super important that your horse remains relaxed, both mentally and physically, in all phases of the training. It doesn't matter what level you are working at, what level you are competing at, or what movements you are riding. Relaxation must always be present. Now, there is a saying that you cannot put expression on top of tension. And that is because the horse's back can only swing when he is relaxed. And because of this, because we need the back to swing, correct and controllable expression only comes from a horse that is mentally and physically relaxed. Now, at this point, it's also important to note that when you are trying to create expression in the horse, expression that comes from excitement should be avoided. And this is because when the horse is excited, he's not mentally relaxed. And the type of expression that comes from excitement is not controllable, and therefore it should be avoided. In an ideal world, what we want to be able to create expression, but to do so in a relaxed and controllable way from a horse that is relaxed both mentally and physically. Okay, so now let's move on to look at the difference between a hot horse and a tense horse. Because these days, many top dressage riders do favour hot horses. Now, hot horses have a controllable positive tension that is consistent, and that can be translated into expression and power. And if you can do that correctly, then you can achieve some really big dressage scores. However, it's crucial that you don't confuse hot with tense. Now, negative tension is uncontrollable and inconsistent, and it displays itself in the horse in the following ways. So, the horse could be seen to be spooking, the horse could show nervousness or unsettled behaviour. There is often a lack of attention on the rider. Some horses will shut down altogether and drop behind the rider's leg, where other horses will pull against the reins and try to go faster and faster. So essentially, the difference between hot horses and tense horses is that yes, a hot horse can have lots of energy and to some degree some tension, but that tension is controllable, it's consistent, and therefore it's positive tension. However, when a horse is described as being tense, that means it's negative tension, so in a way that is inconsistent and uncontrollable. So one moment the horse could seem fine, and the next moment it could be unsettled, and then the moment after that it could turn itself inside out. Now, what I try to think of is that when a horse is negatively tense, it means that it's no longer focused on the rider, and its focus is more outwards on what is going on around it. Whereas hot horses, I like to think, are just over-triers. They just want to get things right. They're just overly sensitive. But as long as it's controllable and it's consistent, it can be positive tension that can enhance the dressage performance. But we've got to be very careful that positive tension doesn't tip over into negative tension, because this is where the horse gets nervous and where the focus turns outwards onto its surroundings rather than inwards onto the rider. So now we know exactly what relaxation is, we know why we want to have it and why it's so important. Let's now take a look at 6 ways to help you promote relaxation within your horse. Now, of course, every horse is an individual and you know your horse best. You're likely to know what stresses them and what causes tension and what doesn't. But in general, these are just a few tips to help you out. So the first area that we're going to look at is horse management. Now, of course, every horse is different and different things can trigger tension in different horses. But tension can be created before you even get in the saddle. So here are some things to think about first. So first up, let's talk about turnout. Now, some horses hate being stable for long periods and they can become tense as a result, and often that tension is expressed in excess energy and spookiness under saddle. So try to make sure that your horse enjoys some turnout every single day. Now, depending on your facilities that you have available to you, if you can't turn your horse out, you may find that working him twice a day is the key to keeping him relaxed. So you could mix and match your sessions. For example, you might lunge in the morning and then in the evening you might hack out. And then the next day you might school in the morning and then possibly lunge in the afternoon. The only thing you've got to be careful of is that you don't want to overwork the horse, because if you tire the muscles, this will lead to tension, which is obviously what we're trying to avoid. But you want to try to give your horse plenty of things to do outside of his stable, especially if you can't give him turnout. Now, the next thing to think about is friends. So horses are herd animals and they can get stressed if they're alone, especially if they're on their own for long periods. Now, if you are in an isolated area and there's no other horses around, then you may want to consider either getting a companion pony or some other form of animal. So, for example, things like sheep and goats have been known to work quite well. But a horse that is kept on his own can be stressed simply because he is not designed to be on his own. Now, another option is stable toys. So many horses do enjoy having a toy to play with in their stable, such as a softball or a treat ball, and they can be used to keep the horse's brain occupied. If the horse is getting the mental stimulation he needs, then he's less likely to become frustrated, and sometimes tension can simply be due to boredom, especially for those that have to be stable for long periods. Now, next up we have feeding and nutrition. Now, if you are feeding your horse incorrectly in a way that doesn't match your horse's workload, then again that can cause excess energy. For example, if you're feeding your horse like a racehorse, but you're only riding him for a relaxed 20-minute leg stretch twice a week, then that could be the reason why your horse is not relaxed. And lastly, let's talk about the yard environment and your horse's daily routine. Now, ideally, you want to find one that suits your horse's temperament. For example, busy yards can create stress and tension in some horses. Now, although all of these things listed seem quite basic, you'll be surprised at the difference that these things can make to your horse. So if you do have a big problem with your horse being tense, take a look at the management side of things first, because often these little changes that we make can have a huge difference to your horse's life and to your horse's well-being, and therefore to his levels of stress and tension. It goes without saying that if your horse is happy and relaxed in his day-to-day life, then he's more likely to be happy and relaxed when you're working him under saddle. Now, the second way to promote relaxation is to be a relaxed rider. Now, we don't mean to be a sloppy rider. You still need to hold your position, but we just want you to do it in a more relaxed way. So take a look at this vicious circle. So if you get stressed, then you will tend to breathe quicker. This then triggers your own fight or flight response. You then tense your muscles and your body stiffens. This translates directly into your horse. Your horse then gets tense, you then start to breathe quicker, and so on and so forth, around and around it goes. So when you feel yourself in this vicious cycle, just remember to breathe. So slow down your breathing and make sure that you breathe deep into your belly. You drop your shoulders, you allow your hips to soften, and you feel your horse respond. Now, a very good tip to help with this is that when you are doing rising trot, count how many times you inhale compared to how frequently you rise. And then you're going to repeat the exercise, but this time count how many times you exhale compared to how frequently you rise. Now, technically, the number of rises per inhale and the number of rises per exhale should be equal. Now, this is a very simple exercise to ensure that you are getting good oxygen saturation in your body and therefore better muscle effectiveness. Because if your body is deprived of oxygen, which can happen when you breathe quicker, shorter, and shallower, then your strength and coordination will be compromised. So don't forget to breathe deeply and slowly and be a relaxed rider. Because if you are relaxed, then your horse is more likely to be relaxed as well. Now, the next point is that not only do you need to be relaxed, but you also need to be balanced. Now, the horse is a flight animal, and if danger comes up, his first response is to turn and to run and to not fall over. Because in the wild, if the horse trips and falls, he can become lunch to a predator. Therefore, the horse has a desire to stay balanced, and if he loses his balance, he can become tense and worried. So if you're a balanced rider and you can help the horse stay balanced and you're not going to hinder the horse's balance in any way, then the horse is more likely to be relaxed. And this is because the horse feels secure and confident that he is going to stay upright on all 4 feet. And it also feels good to the horse to be balanced as opposed to unbalanced, therefore minimizing tension and increasing the likeliness of relaxation. Now, moving on to tip number 4, and this is to keep your aids clear and consistent. So you and your horse need to be able to work together as one. And in order for that to happen, you must be able to communicate with your horse clearly. This is the foundation for any good partnership. Now, if your horse doesn't know what you want him to do, or he doesn't understand the aids that you are giving him, then he will be unable to answer your questions. And when that communication channel between the two of you is not clear, then the horse can become confused, frustrated, or nervous. He will be unable to form a harmonious partnership with you. And these points are especially true for sensitive horses. And we experience it ourselves as humans. Just think about how frustrating it is to try and do something when you're not quite sure how to do it, or you're not quite sure what is being asked of you. It can cause tension even in us humans. So imagine what it's like for the horse when he's trying to give you the right answer, but he just doesn't know what it is because your aids are inconsistent or they are not clear. Now, another way in which you can promote relaxation in your horse is to keep the horse's work progressive. So what you're going to do is you're only going to ask the horse to carry out work that is suitable for his level of training. Now, if you ask him to do work that is beyond his current strength and his current understanding, you can create tension, let alone injury and muscle fatigue. For example, if your horse can't perform a 10-meter circle in canter, then it would be silly to ask him to try and do a canter pirouette. And doing so will just create confusion. And that confusion of asking too much too soon can cause tension in the horse. Now, another thing to be aware of is drilling the horse, because again, that can cause muscle fatigue, leading to stiffness, tightness, and tension. So even if your horse can do a movement, you don't want to repeat it too many times in quick succession. So think about this for yourself. So if you go to the gym and you lift a 10-kilogram weight above your head, the first couple of reps might be relatively easy for you. However, if you do 10 or 15 reps, this might get a little bit harder. Now, if someone keeps drilling you and you have to do 50 or 100 reps, you can see how your muscles start to tire, how they start to fatigue, and how you start to become tense and tight. The same principle applies to your horse. But in essence, the purpose of this slide is to stress that all the horse's work must be progressive. And if it's taught in a progressive way, then the horse will find it easy, he will understand it, and he will feel confident in it. And therefore, he is more likely to stay relaxed. Now, the final tip we have for you is tip number 6, which is to not be afraid to take a step back. So if you feel as though things aren't going well, and maybe your horse is getting tense or you feel the tension building, then don't be afraid to take a step back and go back to work that your horse finds easy and comfortable. Now, this could be a little step back or it could be a big step back, whatever is needed to re-establish the relaxation. Because pushing forward regardless can do more harm than good. So go back to work that the horse feels comfortable and easy doing before starting to progress again. Now, in the very early stages of training a young horse, or maybe one that's been retrained, you may have to take quite a few steps back and quite frequently. And you may sometimes feel as though you are never going forwards. But this is okay. You need to take your time, because your main priority is that your horse is happy in his work, and he can only be happy in his work if he is relaxed. Now, we cover more about this topic in the Training the Dressage Horse module, which is later on in this course. But eventually, you will start to make steady progress as long as you have secured this good foundation. So never be afraid to take a step back. You are not letting the horse win, and you are not letting the horse get away with anything. You are simply re-establishing the relaxation so that you can make quicker progress later on. So to summarize this presentation, a horse who is not relaxed can show irregularity in his paces and a loss of harmony with his rider. So although rhythm is the first official training scale, you cannot achieve anything without your horse being relaxed first. And this means that your horse must be mentally and physically relaxed, and it must be present in all phases of your training. This is not just something that you focus on at the beginning and then you forget about it. It's something which underpins every single session and every single movement. And if you can keep the horse comfortable, confident, and balanced, then more than likely he will be relaxed. Now, this presentation was created by How To Dressage, and if you would like to continue with this course, then please visit course.howtodressage.com. Thank you very much for watching.